Delighted on this episode of Words, Images, and Worlds to be talking about the space of picture books, writing for children, and delighted to be talking with author Laura Strachan. Laura, thank you for joining.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here today.
Glad to have you. Glad to have you. You're the author of Pickles the Mermaid, and I believe there's a sequel book called Rainy's Journey. Is this right?
Yes, yes.
There they are.
Mhm.
Yeah. And we'll, of course, put those up for people to see in the video version as well, so they can see the covers by themselves. But by means of a first question, what led you to this space of authoring?
Well, I've always had this dream to become an author. I was a teacher for 20 years, and I've always been working with children. And then at the age of 40, I ended up going a different path. I had cancer, so I'm 25 years cancer free. But I think through that experience, I've grown and have a lot of resilience in my life, and I really am grateful for this journey that I've been on. I have a teacher that has been my teacher for many years, a mentor. It's Lilia Sfolin, and she's one of the first teachers that came over. She was actually practiced in India, and she's been my mentor since I was 25. But she's still living. She's 88. She's a yoga teacher, and she always says the joy is in the journey. So finding that joy in your whole journey in your life, and I think that my inspiration came not only from that, but also that my dad was turning 70 when I tried to publish, and I had brain fog from the cancer. And then it was so neat. I moved to this new community and started tutoring children that needed help with reading. My neighbor had never learned to read, and it was such a joy. He came up every day. He had dyslexia, and I was just reading so many kids' books. And their family adopted 19 kids, which is amazing between their whole
Mhm.
family. And so
Mhm.
I think sometimes you have to listen to these like what I call heart whispers. And then it just seemed like I just kept feeling like the time was right to write. And then when you're ready, the teacher will kind of show up. And I found Miriam Laundry, and she's a publisher up in Canada online. And what I loved about working with her is she had this whole group, and I've had a lot of author friends and mentors, and I just have really enjoyed this. And my dad is still alive, and my parents are 91 at this point. And it's brought me so much joy to finally bring this to fruition, my life goal to write a book. And so it's the inspiration has been there for many years. And I finally was able to, now that I'm in a new community, have the space to do it.
Nice, nice, yeah. Um, you write for young readers, so what makes that kind of a special space as well, writing for the youngest of us?
Yeah, so I would never think of these stories. I get inspiration from kids. So Pickles the mermaid, who would think of that? Children do. So
Mhm, mhm.
I spend a lot of time with kids, and when I quit teaching, I nannied families for a while and just kept getting babies to work with. I just have a heart for kids. And well, my niece was having her fourth child a couple years ago, and I was with her daughter, and she was obsessed with mermaids. And she's got this blonde, real curly hair. She was 3 at the time, Margaret, and she named her mermaid Pickles. And she giggled, Pickles. And so I really, you know, have to sometimes listen inside and think about what I want to write about. And for me, my son at the time was telling me, why don't you write about something that makes you happy? And I just couldn't get Pickles the mermaid out of my mind. And my kids are a lot of inspiration too. So my son was bullied growing up. He had ADHD, and I was also a special educator for many years. And I really felt like I didn't have the resources I needed in helping kids to cope with this big topic, and it's gotten worse, I think, over time. And so I have a bully in the story, but the fun thing that happened is my daughter in the second story, I wasn't planning a sequel at all. And so for Rainy's journey, she's the bully, but in the second story, she has a change of heart. And it all happened for my daughter. It was a true story on the ripple effect of kindness. And I realized that my daughter in the eighth grade, I would have never even known that she had done this. She sat with somebody that was sitting alone in a classroom, but not knowing the backstory, the student was leaving that school. She felt like she didn't belong. And so we just never know like what difference will make. I would have never known this story, but in the eighth grade, my daughter was voted for making the most impact because the teachers didn't know how to help her. The parents were at their wits' end. And she was planning to leave that week until my daughter met her. And then that changed hearts and lives. And she ended up staying and became an integral part of the communities. So, in the end of this book, Pickles goes on a journey and she is kind to Rainey. And what I love in my stories too, I have a singing conch shell in the first story, and it's really just a reminder. I wanted to help kids remember how loved they are. And it's tied,
Mhm.
so the conch shell, even though it's magic, it's tied to that emotion of love. And so when kids hear it, for me, when my kids were even before they were born, I loved them and I would play lullabies. So the conch shell plays lullabies and they remember their parents singing lullabies and how loved they are. And I have a granddaughter that's 3, and I think she's really resonated with that. And she has me sing so many lullabies to her now when she goes to sleep. But at the end of the story, Pickles is kind, and she includes Rainey into a pickle party, and Rainey was not really that happy at the end, and she was about ready to swim away, but Pickles stops her, and that one act of kindness, bringing her into the group and having an inclusion and having this joyful moment of connection triggered the second story on the ripple effect of kindness. And it's really been such a joy because I really can't write these stories. They have to come to me, and it takes me time
Mhm.
to, it takes time to really think about what you want to do. And it is helpful when you're publishing. Like I've had a lot of support along the way.
Nice, nice, very cool. Um, what's it been like to get your work back to you in published form? Thinking about picture books, especially, it looks like Michelle Simpson is the collaborator on both of those. So, what is that like to see it when it's finally rendered?
Oh, it's such a joy to hold it in your hands, and it's really like a legacy to have this for generations to come. And Michelle, I'm glad you brought her up. She is such a gifted illustrator, and she collaborated so beautifully on these stories and really has a lot of color and to engage the kids, and her emotions on the faces are just so beautiful. And I really enjoyed working with Michelle on these first 2 books.
Nice, nice. It sounds like there are some particular things you want readers to take away. So, any message to your readers that you'd like to share about what you hope they're thinking about after they read the books?
Yeah, so I really love that message of self-love and having kids embrace their own uniqueness for who they are and shining their light into the world. So my stories are all about finding their true self, and sometimes we forget who we are. We forget, this greatness we have, and I do like writing for young readers for that reason. I feel like they're just learning and they're growing, and their self-esteem is something by the age of 7 or 8, they finally are building that self-esteem. And so these books are really encouraging kids who will be the next generation to come to really be strong, be brave, have courage, to find mentors, community, and support, and to really embrace who they are in the world and be curious of who they want to be. And so it's really about just finding their true self, and being able to have empathy for others, have inclusion with children. And this was also written just to help kids build better positive relationships in schools, and really to help them if they are having problems with someone that is a bully, who to get help from, and how to talk to adults or caregivers and adults, any anybody in their lives that they can get help. And it's geared to giving them resources and tools to helping them, learn and grow. And what I love about picture books is it's all about fun too. So
Hmm.
it's all about enjoyment when they're reading it. So there's hidden messages in these stories, and the takeaway continues. I find the kids like to read these over and over, and there's so many messages that are hidden into this, and it's been really fun making it a journey for them just to read and explore and to learn and grow.
Nice, nice. Um, well, what's next for you? What is ahead in your creating, and where can people go to learn more?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's https backslash www.laurastrachanbooks.com. And so on that, I even have like a direct link to buying my books there. And so this is always like, I'm continuing to grow, and I'm actually exploring a new genre for my third book. And I just spent a week recently with my father. I mentioned that's 91. And I have this story that I want to share to the world about him when he was 8 years old. And he raised a red-tailed hawk that had fallen out of a tree. And it's such an incredible story because his mother, my grandmother, I was very close to, and she has really been an inspiration in my life. She was also a teacher to me as well. And but when I look back and see his life, and his father had just gone, he had joined the army, and my dad at 8 was now the head of the household. He had a younger sister, 3 years older, and this baby hawk fell out of the tree, and his mom let him take that on to be the parent to this baby hawk. And it's just so fascinating that he was able to train it and release it. And then the next spring, it came back with a mate. And recently, I went to the house he grew up with, and it's so interesting that the people that have lived there the last 25 years have told me that the hawks continue to come year after year to that location. And I don't know, it just seemed like such a fascinating story to me. So I'm always, listening inside, and sometimes the story comes to you. But this just got my first edit is was submitted to my editor on the 9th of September. So we usually go through 3 edits, and then I will need to find a new illustrator for this one because it's a little bit different than the first two I wrote. But it's exciting, and
Very
I
much
just
so.
yeah. So I don't know. I have like lots of stories in my head. I thought I was going to write a story called The Blue Butterfly because when I had cancer, my son um, was a little worried if I was going to live. And I took him to the Crone Conservatory, and we had a lot of magic, and I had him visualize about that my cancer would be like I'd be in a cocoon, and I'd be this beautiful blue butterfly, and it was just neat. He was able to experience this beautiful thing at the Crone Conservatory and finding a blue butterfly, and it was a magical kind of a story, but he never forgot it, and he was only 6 at the time, and he's now 32 and my daughter's 35, so they're a little older. But it's neat to take stories that are meaningful to me and to write about them. I also have these retired sled dogs, and so maybe there might be some stories about them. Since 2014, my daughter worked for Outward Bound in Ely, Minnesota, and I actually did a sled dog trip in January of 2023. And I went 8 days in like this really cold weather. And it was just so incredible to experience that journey. And one of the dogs that I met that was a lead dog is now in my home. I have Sila, and I had adopted on Mother's Day that year prior to the sled dog trip. another dog because my other dogs, they lived to be 17 and 18 years old. They lived a long time. I had two dogs, and then we wanted more, so I got another one. But they have been an inspiration to my life as well in raising these retired sled dogs. So you just never know where your stories will come from. But for me, it's a lot about my life, experiences that I like to bring to life and share. Hope that the readers will take a look at these beautiful stories of Pickles a Mermaid, and it's a sequel. And I do hope to have a third in the sequel coming out as well. I just wanted to take a break and try this Hawk story next. So yeah, I think
Mhm.
there will be more coming for the Pickles series as well. So, but thank you so much for this interview and chance to share with readers. It really, I just want to share that if you have a dream to publish and just to do it and take the time, find someone that'll help you. I waited until I'm now 65 and I'm just now doing these things, but it's given me so much passion and purpose, and I really believe if you're meant to do this that you will find the means to do it, and don't wait, and just really get out there and write your book and your story, because kids are waiting for your message to be brought into the world.
Message, absolutely. Laura, thank you so much, and glad to have you back to talk anytime as you're working on new projects.
Thank you.